This is the Heel to the Face podcast. Brandon, is WrestleMania Super Showdown the same show now that Goldberg's showing up on Friday Night SmackDown to promote his match?
No, but I do want to say thank you, Goldberg, for listening to the podcast. Appreciate you on that. But no, it does not change a thing.
I don't know. Either way, Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Brandon and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is the Heel to the Face podcast. We're about a week away from Super Showdown, about a month and a week away from WrestleMania 36 in Tampa. We're coming off Takeover Portland. We're going to discuss our main topic this week, Ruthless Aggression, and so much more. We're joined, as always, Brandon the Icebreaker Clements and myself at K-Rock Jared. Make sure to follow the program on Twitter at Heel to the Face. I said last week I'm going to get us on Spotify. Stupid comment. We are on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on iTunes. And visually, we're on YouTube. So we're going to start this week off with Portland Takeover, to be specific. An all-around great show. 6 matches on the card, and it's pretty much what I guess I would like, in an extent, WrestleMania to be. It's the creme de la creme, the best of the best. It's a 3-hour show, 6 matches. Every match was the best match it could be. There was no bra and panty matches. There was no pillow fights. It was wrestling. Every match essentially went 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was a great show from start to finish. Every match was just quality.
There was no throwaways.
No, there was no.
It was a 3-hour show, 6 matches. That's 30 minutes match.
Yeah, and it was no bathroom breaks. You didn't really need to because the action was just nonstop. Every match was just really good. What was your match of the night if you had to choose?
I mean, it's tough. Obviously, the show kicked off with that Keith Lee, Djokovic match. Dijakovic
that was
match.
Good.
That was really good. Seeing those guys as the size that they are do the moves that they did. That was a great match.
Yeah, to me, that was still that was match of the night for me, in my opinion. I enjoyed it. I was not surprised by how good it was. We talked about it last week previewing NXT Takeover, and they delivered. And of course, on NXT this week, it looks like the feud's not over yet.
Yeah, it looks like there's a few different ways. See, I was watching the main event, and I thought that we were going to lose. Essentially, Undisputed Era was going to lose all the gold, and it came very close. They lost the tag team belts. And it came very close to losing the main gold. So I'm starting to think now I might backtrack on my Adam Cole losing the gold. But obviously Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Wrestling, that DIY, I did talk about that happening maybe before the Rumble. That happened at the next pay-per-view.
The
breakup.
The breakup happened. And as I accurately predicted last week, I said the tag titles were going to be changing over to the Broserweights. Great.
Yes.
Great tag team.
I didn't really care for his little whatever he was doing to kind of intro himself, Matt Riddle, in the show. I thought it was a little stupid when he came out and on the cart. I forgot exactly what he was saying, but it was the fish is.
It was funny because
it was funny one time.
It was a previous episode of NXT. Like they were talking about how much fish could Bobby Fish fish if. I don't know the rest.
Bobby Fish could fry fish.
Yeah, there it is. That's
but
it.
And again, not that saying that it wasn't funny one time or it wasn't funny on the T-shirt, but I think he did it like 4 or 5 times before finally they came out and attacked him.
I disagree. I enjoyed it. I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, the fans were into it. The fans were cheering, and the nice part was obviously Bobby was not too happy about that. Mr. Fish, he was getting ticked off, and then the match happened. Essentially, they started out outside the ring and then came back in and came in the ring and. That was a great match, too. I really enjoyed that match. I love the Broserweights because they're polar opposites. You know, you got Pete Dunne, who's Mr. Serious, wants to fight all the time. And then
it kind of goes back to a lot of tag teams that WWE were really famous for. Obviously, Team Hell No.
Yeah, absolutely.
Polar opposite teams that just seem to work together. I mean, Rock and Sock Connection.
But I will say this. The thing that they have in common is they both like to fight.
Well, yes. I mean, everybody in WWE essentially likes to fight. But The polar opposite thing I think works great. Obviously, I just mentioned Rock Sock Connection. I think that has been some of the trademarks of some very strong tag teams and very good tag teams in WWE history.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Rocket Sock Connection is definitely one of the big names, I would think, because those two are totally opposite, just from physical. Everything.
It creates really good comedic timing. Some great moments when you have the more stern versus the more laid back.
Let's not forget either. We've talked about this before. One of the best segments of all time was "This Is Your Life."
Yes,
and that was Rock
that's
and
exactly
Sock.
what it was.
That was fantastic.
The stern Rock versus the goofy comic relief of Mick Foley working great together, and I think Broserweights has kind of a little bit of element of that.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell if they can get to that level of Rock and Sock, because Rock and Sock was fun. That was good.
I mean, I don't think they'll get to the Rock and Sock Connection as a tag team, because hopefully, if they ever individually get to either one of those, that'll be far down the road. And
for sure, they're both young enough talents. I mean, it was fun. I mean, they did a great job. It was a good finish, and DIY is no longer in the picture. I had a feeling like I didn't say it on the
DIY January 2020 to February 2020.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, I'll say this: DIY was, they were one of the best tag teams in NXT for a while, and watching that match, I didn't say it on the podcast, but as I'm watching this match and I'm watching the near falls, I'm like, then I see Johnny come out, and I'm like, oh, he's screwing Ciampa right here. I just before he even did anything, I'm like, oh, there's no way he's helping Ciampa at this point. So. It was a cool finish. It keeps the title on Adam Cole, and Adam Cole, I don't know. I have this weird feeling. I still think he's losing the title WrestleMania season or WrestleMania the weekend.
You think he's going into WrestleMania as champion?
Yes, I do. I think he's going into WrestleMania as champion. I think he's going to lose
to Finn Balor.
Yeah,
because Finn Balor's got an announcement to make next week.
Yeah, that's who I'm thinking. And it's perfect time for UE to go up to the big roster.
But, I think I feel that if Adam Cole is defending the belt, I still feel that at WrestleMania, maybe at TakeOver he's defending the belt against Finn Balor, but I still feel at WrestleMania we might be getting the Undisputed Era against the Monday Night Messiah and his cronies.
That'd be cool.
I feel like we're getting something like that at WrestleMania.
I'm not opposed to that at all. I think that's pretty good. I mean, let's move over to that actually while we're on it.
Well, before we move over to TakeOver, I want to make a little correction from what we were talking last week. I said something about Portland and their history of wrestling and WWE not going there. I was under the impression that it had something to do with combat sports, did a little bit more research and found out because WWE did have a presence in Portland in the early 80s. Billy Jack Haynes and a lot of those guys that came right out of the Northwest. It ended up happening in about 1990 to 1992 when WWE decided to run some of their last shows there because Oregon had an independent drug testing organization and Linda McMahon did not want to go to any states or preferred. So it wasn't a legality, but preferred not to take WWE to any states that had individual drug testing. She says it's because of the spread of HIV. They want to keep it in-house. Obviously, we all remember Vince McMahon and his little steroid scandal going on at that time and trying to keep maybe that a little bit more in-house than worried about the whole, if someone else is doing our drug testing versus ours. So it was the last show they ran was from 1990. The last time that a professional wrestling company was there of a big time was 1992. And they returned for a Monday Night Raw in 2003 before coming back for Unforgiven and I think eventually a No Mercy pay-per-view the following year. So that was the reason why Portland was off the table for many years. And I think they changed their stance on that. It was something that Oregon did to change their stance legality, but it was their stance on drug testing more or less. Not the whole combat sports.
I mean,
thing.
you see, you're on the right path. It was just in a little different
direction. They were not
direction.
allowed. I do remember not watching any Monday Night Raw or pay-per-views from Portland, Oregon for a good 10-year span throughout the 90s. But so there was a reason why. It wasn't the combat sports reason. It was another reason. But while we're still on TakeOver, one more thing, and I thought was really cool, and this is kind of one of the only things you get on this kind of podcast, because I'm one of the only people that cares about this stuff, Brandon. You care a little bit. But I really liked the unveiling of the entrance. I liked when the show hit the air, there was a curtain that blocked the front entrance, like a concert. The curtain came down. There was a little bit of concert. There was a cool little aspect to the stage that I felt was unique. It wasn't the house show set they had at Worlds Collide.
No, yeah.
It wasn't Monday Night Raw or SmackDown set. It was its own little set. And I liked it. I liked that they had the curtain up. As you saw if you're watching the pre-show, Beth Phoenix and the rest of the announce team came out from behind the curtain, hiding the drums and the guitar and all that. So when the show kicked off, the curtain dropped, and it'd be so cool. WrestleMania is a little difficult, but it'd be so cool to kind of bring that element into WWE if they ever decided to do unique pay-per-view sets. That when you're watching the pre-show, don't show the set, have it behind a curtain, and then when the pyro kicks off, the curtain drops, and you get to see the set.
And you have a mini concert.
And you have a little mini concert.
That's cool.
NXT's version of Limp Bizkit, I guess.
Yeah,
Poppy. I'm not really familiar with them, but NXT loves them.
Yeah, NXT loves them, and they put on a decent show. And the show from start to finish, I would say, was an A+ show.
So you want to move on to the main roster here, WWE Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah, I want to get your thoughts on this. We were just kind of scratching the surface with the Monday Night Messiah and his cronies. What do you think of this latest promos or segments with Seth Rollins with this right now? Where do you stand on it right now, the Monday Night Messiah thing?
I mean, I'm still intrigued. I find it very interesting. I like his entrance. His Titantron has the Monday Night Messiah logo. He's really taken into this persona, and so far so good. I think with Seth Rollins in the group, it looks like Samoa Joe might be out on injury, so it doesn't seem like he'll be in any sort of 6-man tags. Obviously, we saw the Viking Raiders helping out Kevin Owens this past week.
What's the extent of Samoa's injuries?
Samoa looks like he got hurt at a commercial shoot. A lot of the details haven't come out yet, but it looks like he might be injured. Again, a lot of the details haven't come out yet, but it seems that he was hurt shooting a commercial. So, I know he was part of that whole anti-Seth Rollins, whenever they did the 8-man tags or the 6-man tags. He won't be, it looks like, a part of that for anytime soon, but I like this group. I'd love to see this group go against Undisputed Era at WrestleMania. It's probably the best faction going right now in WWE.
Yeah, and actually, before we get into the, I know we were going to talk Ruthless Aggression because I was actually watching the last 2 episodes on the network. Both great episodes, by the way. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Triple H was asked an interesting question recently. Would they put a D-Generation X, like a new faction, like a new version of DX, and who would it be? Couple names that popped out: Adam Cole, I think that's kind of obvious. Tommaso Ciampa, and Velveteen Dream, and then I don't know how you feel about it, but Io Shirai was another name. What are your thoughts?
That would be their version of D-Generation X.
Yeah, it would be like another version of it. Yeah.
That seems, I guess the thing with D-Generation X is it came upon the time, an era, the Attitude Era, and I don't feel, I just, you can't copy that. I guess it's just so hard to think of who would be in this current D-Generation X. It's a whole different era. Everything is different. Good example is the XFL. Love it or hate it. Watch the original XFL, watch the new XFL. Talk about night and day difference.
And it's, the night and difference, the old XFL, not so good.
I don't even understand how the new XFL calls itself the XFL and has any sort of lineage going to that, because they should have just had a brand new name for the thing.
It's great, though. The XFL, the new XFL has been pretty solid.
But that's kind of what I feel with D-Generation X. It's like, how would you pick a new D-Generation X? It's, South Park, Jackass, these things don't exist anymore, and these were the big topics of discussion. These were the big pop culture things, the Osbournes. When D-Generation X existed, these things aren't around anymore. Io Shirai, is she going to take the part of China?
I guess. That's kind of odd.
I would give it to Shayna Baszler or Rhea Ripley more than I would do that. Rhea Ripley, maybe specifically, who said on a podcast she's holding off on tattoos right now, obviously, because WWE's giving her the big push. She, though, says that if she wasn't in WWE and if she still has the chance, she wants her body head to toe covered in tattoos.
That's cool. Hey, more.
I didn't know that about Rhea Ripley, and Shayna Baszler. We're talking about Monday Night Raw. We're talking about Attitude Era. Did your TV bleep? Because mine didn't.
No, my TV definitely did not bleep. That was cool. We got to hear. What was that word again? You want to say it?
It rhymes with big hit and fit. And, if they can say it, we can say it. We're not even on the air. Yeah. But Shayna Baszler right there talking she was going to beat the shit out of Becky Lynch.
I love it.
And I guess the thing I'm saying here is kind of what they're doing with Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair at TakeOver. Are they ruining this Elimination Chamber match they're going to have? Because it's going to be Shayna Baszler versus Becky Lynch. Why are we going? Make the Elimination Chamber a #1 contender for Bayley's belt.
Yeah, that's the thing too. They're already tipping the hand, because why would they do all this with Becky and Shayna and not have Shayna in the match?
They should have this 6-women Elimination Chamber for the SmackDown belt, because right now, there's more flux in that. There's no dead set storyline for Bayley. Obviously, she's going to fight at Super Showdown, which is a huge deal because the women's title is going to be on the line for the first time ever in Saudi Arabia. Only the second women's match ever in the Saudi Arabia pay-per-views. It's going to be Bayley versus either Carmella or Naomi. I'm kind of guessing it's probably going to be Naomi just for the standard's sake because Carmella, I don't know how you can cover her up. I mean, she's got some sex appeal. That's her gimmick. Yeah,
that's her deal. That's her deal. I would say Naomi plus Naomi would be really good too because she's a good competitor. It's good to see her back in the fold. So, we'll see. I mean, again, going back to the chamber match, Shayna Baszler's winning. I mean,
it's a waste of our time. Then.
Yeah.
And I feel the men. I feel Roman Reigns. If that is the case, what's been leaked so far with Baron Corbin and Robert Roode and Roman Reigns, I feel it's Roman Reigns winning that as well.
Yeah. So in case
you were thinking about making the drive down to Philly to watch the Elimination Chamber, they should do it maybe for the tag teams instead, the ones that don't have good feuds going on, because it seems like it's so clear of who's going to be winning these. But you never know. But right now, we want to talk about the show that debuted after TakeOver. They've had 2 episodes so far, and we've got some moments ourselves outside of just the WWE Network. I'm talking specifically
Ruthless Aggression.
Ruthless Aggression. Vince McMahon said it in 2002. That infamous words that he uttered in front of a group of people once he saw a lot of his main talent take off in 2002. I think it was June 2002, which started the Ruthless Aggression era. What are some of your favorite moments? I would say Ruthless Aggression ran from June of 2002, right after WrestleMania 18, up until about 2008. I would say if WrestleMania 23 in Detroit wasn't the end of the Ruthless Aggression era, then WrestleMania 24 in Orlando was. That's when it started to turn into the TVPG era.
Yes, TVPG started summer of 2008 officially.
Yes.
The last pay-per-view, I'm trying to think of it. It wasn't SummerSlam. It was another pay-per-view that they had in the summer. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Like the Bash.
Yeah, it was one of those.
I remember they had the Great American Bash and they turned it into the Bash.
Yeah, it was Great American Bash. That's the exact one. Great American Bash was labeled the last non-PG pay-per-view, and obviously since has been PG.
So Ruthless Aggression 02 to about 08. What are some of your favorite moments from the Ruthless Aggression era? Some of your favorite stars?
Well,
some of the worst moments.
I'm just going to say this. The Ruthless Aggression, I mean, honestly, when you were playing that, I thought for a second we're going to hear the other Ruthless Aggression. I thought we were going to hear John Cena's Ruthless Aggression. That's the guy. That was the guy of the era. I mean, he obviously took his bumps, as we saw in the Ruthless Aggression, the second episode, where he was not too far away from being cut before.
That was a very interesting part of this whole thing, to think about where John Cena is and to think about it was a pretty much meaningless. I mean, we look back on it without knowing any knowledge, and we would just say that was just another meaningless episode of SmackDown, a pre-taped Halloween edition of SmackDown, not realizing that specific episode, that one day, could have been the make or break for the megastar John Cena, for him even having had Nikki Bella for a minute or two. The movies, the commercials, obviously he was in a Super Bowl commercial. All this can go back to a simple episode of SmackDown where they gave him a chance to do some freestyle and rap, that he only got the chance because of the fact that he just spoke up on a bus ride and did some freestyle and rap.
Yeah, I mean, and if I remember correctly, watching the episode, he got a little inspiration from Rikishi and Rey Mysterio, maybe some of those guys on the back of the bus doing a little rap battle. So, I mean, as the story goes, like he did something really quick about like a can of tuna or something with Stephanie, and they green lighted it, and the rest is history, as they say.
It's just crazy to think that's how close it came. That simple episode.
The cuts were like right there.
The November cuts right before Christmas, and that was a Halloween episode.
Now I want to take a step just a little bit further back. Now, before the Ruthless Aggression really like took off in the beginning of it. Mm-hmm. The infamous OVW class of 02. I mean, look at the names on that list. You got Cena, you got Lesnar, you got Orton, you got Batista. Shelton Benjamin. That's great.
Shelton Benjamin might be delivering one of my favorite moments of the Ruthless Aggression era. We talk about things that we think are going to be meaningless and we look back on them. But I remember it was probably one of the best kickoff to Raw matches ever. I remember it was part of the intro for Monday Night Raw ever, the Shelton Benjamin versus Shawn Michaels match that kicked off Monday Night Raw. I want to say this is 2006. This match went like 30 minutes. Shawn Michaels ended up giving him the super kick when Shelton Benjamin jumped off the ropes. Shawn Michaels gave him the super kick. Like a match like that just stole the show right as Raw kicked off. No one saw it coming. Shelton Benjamin, he didn't, shoot into the stratosphere after that. But I mean, that could have been I feel like he might have been on the edge of being cut or something like that. Because his time with Team Angle was kind of coming to an end. And we really only knew him from the World's Greatest Tag Team. But that was one of my highlights of the Ruthless Aggression era. Yeah,
I mean, I'll say this. Another great match, WrestleMania 21. I believe it was Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, one of the best matches of all time.
Yes.
That was a great match. That's one match I could think of. I mean, there were some Eddie Guerrero moments in there as well before his, and one of the things that the sad part of the Ruthless Aggression era was the passing of Eddie back in 2005, where, I can't believe we're going to be 15 years since Eddie's been gone. That's crazy. That's crazy to think in itself. But I will say this, out of all the bad things, that bad thing that happened, that was one of the worst things that could happen, is that losing Eddie, who could still wrestle very well, losing a talent like that, there was a positive turn out of it, and it was the wellness policy. And I think the wellness policy, a lot of people give people crap, give WWE sometimes crap for it. I think the wellness policy is a good thing because if that was in place, we might still have Eddie today.
If the wellness policy was in place, we might be able to honor Eddie a little bit better because we'd be able to show his clip where he's also being honored with Chris Benoit, who they don't honor at all. Like if you look at the top 10 moments that WWE does, like let's say of the Ruthless Aggression era WrestleMania history, we can't show that. What was probably at the time one of the biggest moments in WrestleMania history. It felt like WrestleMania 21, we had Batista and Cena. Well, WrestleMania 20, it felt like prior to that when we had Benoit and Eddie Guerrero both leaving with the belt. It kind of felt like that culmination of the two, that culmination of maybe moving into a new era of wrestling at that time with both of them together, that we can't look back on how important that moment was because of the fact that Chris Benoit's in that.
Yeah, and unfortunately because of everything that happened. Now I want to go back a little bit. The thing that was a little odd about the Ruthless Aggression, I forgot about it for a little bit until I started watching the episodes. I forgot how bad it was when the WCW contingent came to WWE. It wasn't the big names because they had the AOL Time Warner contracts. I forgot about that.
And some credit to my friend who kind of brought this up. And I know it's a short span of time, but it's still an era. I think the Invasion era is an era all to itself. I think from WrestleMania 17, when Austin and Vince McMahon aligned, that was the official end or the chapter closing of the Attitude Era.
I agree.
And I felt that the next night, and I guess they could kind of blend together because I guess the start of the Invasion era could be the 1 week prior to WrestleMania 17 when Shane McMahon and Vince, purchased WCW and Shane showed up on Nitro. And I feel from that point up until right after WrestleMania 18 with the NWO, I felt that year and a half could probably be called as just the Invasion era.
Yeah,
because
I
that's
agree.
what the whole year was just focused on. Yeah. And it stinks. And, not just looking back on it, but I guess the thing is Sting, Goldberg, NWO, they were tied up into contracts. And I don't understand why. You can't guarantee they're going to come to WWE. I get that. But I don't know why you wouldn't have waited out until their contracts were over with to see if you could have got them to do the Invasion angle then, like in 2003. Because you did get Goldberg. You did get NWO. You did get Rey Mysterio. And you didn't get Sting right away. It took you a long time to get him. But if you would have just got the guys that you could have got literally right as soon as you get him, you got Goldberg pretty much as soon as you could get him. You got the NWO pretty much as soon as you could get him. You got Rey Mysterio pretty much as soon as you got him.
Yep.
So the focus, I guess, if you can't even negotiate with those guys until their contracts were essentially up because they were getting paid to sit home. So if you would at least waited until you had a chance, the Invasion angle could have been so much better.
Well, yeah, because some of the names you're not even going to remember. I forgot about some of these guys that were there.
Chuck Palumbo, Mark Jindrak. I mean, essentially,
Sean Stasiak.
It's essentially the WWE versus what was then WCW Thunder, which is the guys that were there is the reason why WCW was out of business to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, it was. I mean, looking back, I mean, there were some pros and cons to it. I mean, WWE made it through that time frame where those guys didn't come, and then Ric Flair comes out in during Raw, and he comes up, puts his arm around Vince, says, "We're partners," I
think if you were to ever do an Invasion angle with Impact Wrestling, it's got to be Samoa Joe, it's got to be AJ Styles, it's got to be Abyss, It's got to be Sting, maybe even. You know what I mean? You can't do it with the current guys in Impact Wrestling.
No, it just makes no sense.
And worst part is WWE, if they did it the same way, it'd be AJ Styles on Team WWE. Because remember, at the time, they had Stone Cold Steve Austin on Team WCW. I mean, it was ridiculous. Even some of the ECW guys that they couldn't get. They couldn't, get a lot of the good ECW guys at the time. They were having trouble with that.
Yeah, it was. I'll say this: the other part I want to talk about on the Ruthless Aggression Era is Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock were both leaving. They both,
Well, yeah, I mean that's what essentially made the roster have to step up.
Yeah, I mean Vince was calling it out, and then you get the infamous moment. I mean, John Cena. I mean, a lot of people forget, like John Cena hit the, Ruthless Aggression, punched Kurt Angle. Had a good match, and then he was stale for a while. And then
he didn't win the belt until 2005.
Yeah, it took a while. I mean, JBL had a great reign too during this era too.
Yeah, JBL has the Ruthless Aggression Era to thank for his small singles career. He became a champion. He actually provided one of my favorite matches. So right after WrestleMania 21, when Batista and John Cena both won the belts, they were doing the rematches. I remember Batista and Triple H fought, I think, 2 or 3 more times, eventually ending with Batista losing in Hell in a Cell before switching over and moving to SmackDown. And then John Cena moving over to Raw on that one fateful night where he came out in the Spirit of St. Louis jersey and the WWE belt.
Yep.
But while John Cena was still on SmackDown, JBL had a rematch. They fought at Judgment Day, which was a SmackDown-only pay-per-view. Kind of going off of the match JBL had a year earlier with Eddie Guerrero, I think at Great American Bash, which was a bull rope match.
Yep.
This was an I Quit match. John Cena was, we talk about blood nowadays and how little it is and how it doesn't exist, but John Cena was just drenched in blood in that I Quit match.
Yep.
And it takes off because JBL a year earlier was drenched in blood with Eddie Guerrero in a bull rope match at Great American Bash. So JBL in his year being in the title picture had 2 matches, one with Eddie Guerrero, one with John Cena, and which were just great. And they were both SmackDown, which was essentially the B show.
Yeah.
They were great, Stone Cold Steve Austin WrestleMania 13-esque, Crimson Max style matches, which don't get a lot of credit, because people talk about how, I guess the TVPG era is an era where I don't think the WWE Network should be doing a retrospect on that. I think we can leave that one alone.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and you know what? It's funny to mention it too, and looking back at it, that's the time I checked out.
The Ruthless Aggression Era, the one thing I guess we just got to do about that is you have to really pinpoint the Ruthless Aggression Era and make sure, because sometimes that does, because it was right on the bookend of the TVPG era, and it came after the Attitude Era, that it kind of sometimes gets blended into the TVPG era.
It's cool they separated it.
And you got to really separate that out because, I think about wrestling, 10, 15 years ago, that it wasn't that great, but you got to separate that it was. You got to.
I mean, in the
Ruthless Aggression Era and the TVPG era,
the first
they
decade
shouldn't be together.
The first decade of the 2000s, for the most part, was pretty good.
Yes.
Anything, obviously 2008, going into the next decade, that's where the PG era came in, and again, that's where I checked out. I checked out for a while. I didn't watch wrestling for a couple of years. I went back and looked at some of the clips and highlights, and the downside of that was, I didn't get to see CM Punk as much as I wanted to, because I checked out at that point. But I did get to see CM Punk enough before he quit, took his ball and went home. But that's when I checked out. The PG era to me was just awful. I wasn't into it. And I don't know. One day I just put on Raw, and I've been back ever since. I've been back, a handful of years now.
One moment and this is probably what kept me going as a wrestling fan as an adult in the Ruthless Aggression era. But I was there live, and I can tell you what, I've been to a lot of WrestleManias, and I wasn't actually as excited to go to really any WrestleMania as I was to go to this event, because I was watching a match for the first time live, which I thought would be pretty cool, in the Elimination Chamber. And then at the end of the night, again, having gone to many WrestleManias and now 2 Royal Rumbles in a row, maybe I'm just a jaded wrestling fan, but I had never been more excited or jumping out of my seat than when Edge cashed in that Money in the Bank. The first ever Money in the Bank winner, so we never had any template to see, how long they keep it. We had no idea. We thought maybe he was going to cash it in at Mania. And a good 9-10 months later, he cashes it in, wins the belt from John Cena, who had been the champion for about a solid year.
And here's the thing, I'm take a step back. The Money in the Bank idea, you know where it came from, correct? Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is the brain behind the Money in the Bank. He brought it to management, and then your first winner was who? Edge. And what did Edge do? had that infamous moment that you were in attendance for.
Yes, in Albany, New York, a great pay-per-view all around. I mean, Triple H, Big Show, some good women's matches. Remember, that's the thing. The TVPG era ruined the women's matches, but you got to look. The Ruthless Aggression Era had, Lita and Trish Stratus main event Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I remember
so
that
it's
match.
giving Divas a chance before shutting them back down in the TVPG era, only to, like a phoenix, rise higher than even before.
Yes.
So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. Next week, we'll give our predictions on Super Showdown. We'll talk whatever else happens in the world of Raw and SmackDown. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Heel to the Face. Find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and on YouTube. For Brandon Clements, for myself, Jared, this has been the Heel to the Face podcast.